Thank you very much. Dean Veloso, Dean Pear, members of faculty and staff, families and friends, and of course, the INSEAD MBA class of December 23. A big congratulations to making it to the finishing line. Seeing you all before me really brings back a whole rash of memories from my time at INSEAD. The trips that I took with my friends from my INSEAD class around the region to Bali and to Cambodia, for example. I'm sure you remember some of these. The times that I spent in my own chateau in Fontainebleau. And of course, my favorite academic courses. No, not negotiations, not corporate finance. I don't know whether you still have it, but they have the wine appreciation course in Fonty. It's in a lecture theater, and I really remembered that one. I'm super happy to welcome everyone to Singapore today to celebrate this milestone. INSEAD Singapore campus was set up in 2000, and this was a really bold bet because it made INSEAD the first business school in the world to invest in Asia and to establish a dual campus model. The decision was born out of INSEAD's belief that Asia's had a growth potential and its role in grooming globally minded, globally effective leaders for the region. This bet has paid off. When INSEAD was established, Asia accounted for 1/3 of global GDP. Now, Asia accounts for almost half of global GDP and 57% of global GDP growth between 2015 and 2021, and this is more than any other region. And your cohort hails from 62 different countries, with nearly half from Asia Pacific and 21 from Singapore. Together, the cohort represents a microcosm of the diversity that is increasingly characterizing our global leadership bench. Now, fortunately or unfortunately, you are graduating into a world that is marked by volatility and disruption, the likes of which we have not seen in 50 years. Some people say that we're in year one of an era that has yet to be named. This epochal moment is marked by what we used to call the STEEP trends, STEEP, social, technological, economic, environmental, and political. In social, aging societies in the developed world, huge divisions on values and values becoming less universal. In technology, disruptive technologies like AI and precision medicine, genomics, and climate tech. In economics, deglobalization, deblocalization, and increasing fragmentation of trade and investment flows. In the environment, climate change and its impact on economy and society. And in politics, politics most of all, geopolitical contestation and the return of international conflicts. So I'm often asked, how do we all navigate this world now that the path to success seems less obvious and more risky? What does deglobalization mean for global executives? Are the skills taught in INSEAD still relevant? Recently, I was told that MBA application forms include a question to prospective MBAs on where this candidate sees themselves after graduation. And it goes on to state exactly which job, exactly what title. And I couldn't help but smile, in fact, laugh. This kind of certainty is much less possible to have in today's landscape. But you know, it's not the first time the world has seen this. I graduated from INSEAD in 2008 December, right in smack in the middle of the global financial crisis. I went to the Wharton program in August to September, only to find that many of my classmates who had very smugly declared that they didn't need to work so hard because they already secured a plum job and internship with Lehman Brothers suddenly realized that they needed to start all over again. Nonetheless, there were silver linings. What happened to those classmates? The classmates who thought they would end up in finance and investment banking ended up in technology and digital. Executives became entrepreneurs. Some entrepreneurs became professors. So you never know what might happen. Uncertain times underscore the need for a North Star. So here are some that I would like to offer humbly according to my own modest experience, and because I have the privilege of speaking to global business leaders almost every day. The first one is think long term to be in time for the future. If something is inevitable in the long term, the time to start preparing is now. This includes climate change, demographic realities, autonomous driving, artificial intelligence, precision medicine, Once you have a handle on the long-term trends, figure out how to prepare for it. And with the right skill set, in the right place, at the right time, these are almost always opportunities. Often we get stuck trying to figure out whether something will pan out in the short term. But if you think long term, look into the horizon, it allows you to say, this is going to be inevitable, and focus on preparing in at least some small way for it, and then adjust as that day comes closer. I used to climb mountains in Africa, and my guide would always say, actually, there's no need to rush up the mountain. Actually, that only causes altitude sickness. He would say, pole, pole. Some of you know what that means, probably not a lot. It's Swahili for slowly, slowly, but generally in the same direction. So think about it this way. If you put one foot in front of another in that same direction, it is actually inevitable that you will get to where you are headed. One way that Singapore is planning for the inevitable is, for example, through climate adaptation. We are a small, low-lying island state. 30% of Singapore is no more than 5 meters above sea level. So some time ago, we started to build what we call polders, or dikes, across the coastline, and flood defenses through stormwater detention tanks. Our belief that we are going to be hard hit by climate change has also given rise to innovation. We have agri-food technology, planting rice in seawater, water reclamation techniques that give us access to potable water and recycling. This takes a lot of determination and long-term planning, but it is existential for us, and over time, we believe it will bear fruit. So pole, pole. The second point I'd like to make is that realistic optimists will survive in uncertainty, which I know you're going to be facing in the next 10 years. Some of you will know the Stockdale paradox. You may have heard this raised sometime in your career. But those of you who don't know the story, it is one of an Admiral James Stockdale. He was a former VP candidate in the US, a naval officer, and he was a Vietnamese prisoner of war. He was shot down in Vietnam in 1965, and then he spent the next 7.5 years as a prisoner of war in the infamous Hanoi Hilton prison. Now, during his captivity, Stockdale observed that the first prisoners of war to die were the most optimistic ones. These individuals held hopeful expectations that they would be released, but set themselves up for disappointment because they expected they would be released, say, by Christmas, and they would be very disappointed each time their expectations were not met. They died of broken hearts. The second group that didn't make it were the pessimists. They had given up all hope of rescue, and without hope, they passed away. The ones who survived were the ones who embraced a realistic outlook. They understood their situation and focused on coping with their circumstances, but they still kept the faith that there would be a happy ending. And this is the paradox. We're all going to have to navigate challenging and ambiguous times by combining the ability to confront the brutal facts of the current reality while maintaining an unswerving faith that we will prevail in the end. During COVID, being a realistic optimist helped many firms hunker down and get through the uncertainty and fear that they had around a novel pandemic, even as their whole industries ground to a halt. This mindset also helped many executives provide comfort and confidence to their staff without coming across as painting an overly rosy picture. My third point is that character matters in this era of complexity. Character really matters. I meet many corporate CEOs and executives and chairmen. They tell me it has never been so difficult to be a CEO in their experience. Modern CEOs are expected to manage geopolitical tensions, respond when war breaks out and their staff are caught on different sides of the fence. They are expected to make moral judgments and statements and lead when they feel when politicians and statesmen have failed to do so. And they still have to make quarterly targets and ensure the valuations of their companies are still high. These skills are not taught in schools. Complexity will require you to hold the tension between polarities, but it is the strength of your character that is what is going to help you make the choices that square with your values. The most respected leaders I know have worked hard to hone their character skills so that they grow into them. They work on courage and imagination, grit, perseverance, and self-awareness. They put themselves deliberately in uncomfortable and new situations so that they can grow and learn. A decade ago, I was asked to head the Infocom Development Agency and take on the role of Singapore's Chief Information Officer. I had no background in computer science or software engineering, but I accepted the challenge anyway. As it turned out, from day one, I was confronted by an endless array of things that went wrong. I was hacked by cybersecurity threats, government systems went on the verge of collapse, we even had a fire that burnt down a key network node and disconnected a whole chunk of the country. Looking back, it was the best thing that ever happened to me. It's a crash course in network engineering, software coding, dealing with hackers, and the realization that we needed to build our own real tech development expertise. This led me to set up the Government Technology Agency, or GovTech, to spearhead Singapore's digital transformation. This all came in very handy for the above-mentioned pandemic response. So, pole, pole. And that brings me to my final point. The grass is greener where you decide to water it. As you graduate, you will probably be looking for roles in pleasant and promising companies that pay well. I fully understand that you need to recoup the INSEAD MBA costs. At times, you may be unhappy with your choice. You may yearn to be somewhere else. Many of my younger colleagues are always looking for greener pastures. Sometimes they do so at the expense of achieving anything significant where they are. Maybe that is the wrong approach, because if you recall my smug Wharton classmates who had spent so much effort getting into Lehman Brothers in 2008, because it is the taking approach and not the giving approach. I believe the most success you will achieve in life is when you make the most of where you are at any one point of time. And this means creating excellence in the company you're in, doing what it takes to solve problems in the place where you are, bringing out the best in the people around you, even if you don't think that much of them, and finding opportunities to grow in every circumstance. If you want to succeed, then these clients, those peers, that boss, those staff, help them to succeed first. The things that you do to water your own ground will build you up and open new doors for you. If you do this well, you won't get stuck. Opportunities will present themselves. And when they do, you can move. All I'm suggesting is that if you have the mindset that the grass is greener where you water it, yours will be the greener pasture that others seek to join. So in conclusion, I hope that you treasure your time in INSEAD as I did, and keep in touch with all the friends you've made here. The time you've taken, it's time to step back and work on yourselves, think about what really matters, and the relationships you've built. They're important foundations, and I hope they stay with you for a long time. This world that you are entering, this epoch, it will not be a walk in the park. But may you never lose your spark of excitement, your sense of camaraderie, and your deep conviction to be a force of good in this world. Pole pole. Thank you.